Welcome back everybody to Dies Irae Amantes Amentes. Here we are in a heated battle for our own lives. After crashing my fist into the man's face, I used the recoil to leap backwards. As a result of forcefully prying myself free from his grip, my neck's skin was torn. My arteries seemed to be intact, but all the bleeding left me concerned. On top of that, my fist hurt like absolute hell. That punch shattered the bones in my right hand to bits. It felt like I was punching a block of stone, but... Not only was he not blown back, he hadn't even budged at all from where he stood. The unnatural density of his existence hadn't even wavered in the slightest from my attack. But that was exactly why I couldn't leave a man like him to his own devices. I could never, ever allow this scumbag to lay hand on Katsumi and Himuro. The man blew off his companion with what sounded like a sarcastic chortle, almost like he was toying around with a small fry. His face remained completely free from bruises, even though I hit him hard enough to shatter my own fist. This guy was clearly a monster. His power far eclipsed mine, and I wouldn't even snowball's chance in hell to defeat him in a straight-up fight. In fact, I began to question if all this constituted a fight to begin with. Even so, I put my dislocated left shoulder back in place and gave my shattered right fist a fourth twist to fix it. I then thrust a nearby piece of wood into my sleepy leg to wake it up. I wouldn't retreat. Oh, look at that. Oh, he's got the little snake staff thingy in his eyes. I'd grown fond of the world around me. That included this entire city. The one with Kasumi, Himuro, Sister Lisa, Father Trifa, and all those guys at school whose names I didn't even know. I'd do whatever it took to preserve it. I didn't need stuff I wasn't familiar with. I wanted nothing to do with the unforeseen and the unpredictable. And like Shiru, I hadn't the slightest interest in trying all the options. I didn't mind if my life ended up as a boring straight line, which meant that these freaks were in the way. How dared these scumbags invade my story? They need to get the hell back to their own genre. In other words, a life ruined by foreknowledge, such as yours. What was that? A thought resembling a static jolt through my head for a moment, but I needed to keep it out of my mind. I had to focus on what was right in front of me. Luckily, the woman decided not to interfere. I could only hope she would stay at the sidelines, as turning this confrontation to a 2-on-1 fight was pretty much the last thing I wanted. As for the rest, I had to do whatever it took to get the better of this man. Even if I couldn't beat him head on, there had to be another way. We were both fighting hand to hand, no weapons. But the scale of the violence he wielded outclassed mine to the extent it made me want to laugh. In that sense, that last punch was a failure. With my right hand fist shattered, screwing up was no longer an option. Allowing my emotions to guide my decisions could very well prove to be fatal. I need to calm down. This wasn't my first life or death brawl anyway. I don't need to panic. I had to carefully probe his weaknesses and crush them. Like his eyes or his joints. Though he may have been a monster, as long as he resembled a human in appearance, he had to have vitals. Even if worst came to worst and all my attempts failed, I still needed to keep Kasumi and Himuro safe. I need to pull myself together. I had things I held dear to the point of fighting Shiro over them. What exactly did I expect to protect if I ended up getting crushed by these assholes? Damn right I am. The ivory demon cat cracked his knuckles as he leveled his gaze with mine. His glare made me dizzy. This wasn't the time to be intimidated.
Wilhelm Ehrenburg 名乗れよガキ。戦の作法も知らねえか。あいにくと 知らないな。
I didn't feel like revealing a single piece of information pertaining to my identity.
名前が知りたきゃ吐かしてみろよ、白髪野郎。面白い。
That's more like it. I thirst for a battle. Okay, now I don't. The man cut through the air as he approached me, letting out a beast-like roar in the process. He lunged his right arm, or rather his claw, forward. I twisted my body with enough force to wrench my torso off, evading the attack. The slightest graze of his attack was enough to completely tear my clothes at the chest level. Not only that, the land behind me was also crushed and snapped into two. His prowess was inhuman. No other way to put it. If I'd taken that thing head on, he probably would have knocked away my innards with one single strike. The man howled with laughter. If he wanted to pulverize me, he could have easily done it. He was deliberately avoiding just that. Instead, enjoying me watching jump back as I put some distance between us. Whether he was underestimating me or just messing around, it proved to be quite convenient. I had to find an opening before he got serious.
こりゃ驚きだ。さっきに続いて2度連続かよ。ど素人にかわされるほど手抜いたつもりもねえんだけどな。俺がひよったのかお前がやるのか。見たとこ鍛えてるって柄じゃねえが。なるほど。いやいや本当にあのクソ野郎やってくれるぜ。おい。次はもう少し早く行くがよ。
Wait, what does it mean? That old son of a bitch has really done it now. Seems weird.
てめえ、簡単に死ぬんじゃねえぞ。
Wilhelm slowly assumed an oddly relaxed pose as the words left his lips. None of his movements were elegant enough to be called martial arts. His strikes were just absurdly fast and unnaturally heavy-hitting. He moved as a pure, undiluted tornado of raw violence, against which techniques learned through effort held no meaning whatsoever. No practice, no training, even if he killed 100 imaginary enemies. They were still imaginary at the end of the day. Actual combat experience meant everything. Brute force was a display of arrogance particular to those who had been strong from the get-go, as if to say that improvement through dedication remained the privilege of the weak. I knew guys like that very well. This wasn't the first time I'd scuffled with that sort. Dodging was a death wish waiting to happen. I got a punch that barely missed gouging out my sternum and heart under my armpit and locked it up. I then used the force of his charge against him, and leaned back far enough to break his arm. My speed and timing were perfect. I launched a superb counter, the kind I probably wouldn't ever be able to replicate. It was to be a miraculous turnabout. A complete upset I poured my very heart and soul into. However, broke his arm and he's just unfazed. Forget broken, his arm hadn't yielded an inch. Our physiques might have been similar, yet the bastard remained completely unaffected. Impossible. How did he do that? I shifted my force right into performing an overhead throw, kicking him right in the crotch. If I failed with his joints, I'd crush him at his most vulnerable spot instead. Not even our difference in physical strength would matter with this attack. Instead, my leg was crushed with a crunching sound, sending a wave of chills up my spine. No way. This had to be seriously impossible. What was this guy's body made out of? He then immediately followed it up with an uppercut that felt like it was about to mow down my whole face. It was powerful enough to blow me away, but it didn't kill me. I felt intense nausea welling up from the impact, rattling my brain. It hurt. That's an understatement. It hurt like hell. God damn it. Guarding that and ended up breaking both of my arms. Vomiting blood, I collapsed onto the pavement, trying to confirm the damage my body had sustained. Both hands, one leg, and my broken ribs had injured my internal organs. Fucking great. Felt almost like a repeat of what happened 2 months ago. I had just gotten out of the hospital, only to get beaten half to death again. But all these similarities meant that I had experienced these kinds of injuries and pain before. We can take it. Fight to our last dying breath. I could still stand. I could still do this. I was not scared. Wilhelm regarded me with a sneer as I continued to writhe on the ground. Naturally, he had remained completely unscathed. He exuded a demonic aura resembling a heat haze, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of a predator closing in on its prey. He would soon act. True to his word, he only used one hand for his attacks. Despite that, it remained inhumanly fast. And each one of them held lethal power. Defense was not an option. His strikes were merciless, whirlwinds of death that tore at my skin and sent my blood spraying out after a mere graze. I couldn't keep dodging them forever. His one-handed multi-angle attacks, a demonstration of his enormous superhuman power, seemed to ignore the very laws of physics. And they were gradually getting faster. The speed with each one I dodged seemingly testing my limits. I could no longer follow their trajectory with my eyes. As such, intuition remained the only thing I could rely on, the kind of instinct that manifested itself upon the precipice between life and death. But in the end, that too became weaker and weaker. Suddenly, Wilhelm's arm stretched to an unbelievable length. It was several times faster than the fixed acceleration tempo of punches he'd been going by up until. It was only by pure luck that I managed to avoid a direct hit. My broken right leg couldn't support its own weight, causing me to fall. As a result, I cheated death. Looked like Lady Luck hadn't forsaken me just yet. However, the pain I felt when moving with my ribs broken was intense enough to threaten knocking me out. At this rate, they might end up puncturing my lungs in the process. The biggest problem I faced, however, was Wilhelm, smirking as he waited for me to stand up. I couldn't find a way to deal with him. The speed of his seemed like it was beginning to surpass the limits of human kinetic vision and reflexes. It was probably only just getting started, too. At this rate, I could probably only hope for another 1 or 2 miraculous dodges. On top of that, none of my attacks had any effect on him. At the very least, I'd been made keenly aware that physical blows would do no good against him. Then, leaning against a nearby tree, I rose back to my feet. With my limbs broken, I needed to secure a new weapon. I had resolved myself. Wilhelm's bloodlust exploded. He must have predicted what I was about to do. Yeah, he intended to kill me. As such, I couldn't fight him unless I was resolved to do the same to him. I used the tree as a shield in order to block a hit from the bastard that would have otherwise blown my head clean off. Taking the brunt of his blow, the tree splintered into several pieces with a crunch. Wilhelm displayed incredible destructive power for sure, but I was counting on exactly that. I instantly picked something suitable as a weapon out of the numerous splinters soaring through the air. In short, I found myself an improvised stake. As I couldn't catch it with my broken hands, I instead used my left leg, the only intact limb I still had. I performed a so-called wheel kick, winding my heel up with the stake to aim for Wilhelm's throat. I drove the stake down with a clear intent to kill. I didn't want to be a murderer, but I'd die otherwise. I had no choice. And so, my merciless and unrehearsed acrobatic stunt miraculously succeeded. And yet, all I heard was a mocking scoff. Wilhelm once again took my attack head-on without dodging it. Not only did the stake fail to pierce him, the tip had also been crushed to pieces. I couldn't believe my eyes. Seriously, what kind of body did this guy have? How could it not pierce him at the thinnest part of his... Shit, I had to dodge. My reckless dodge in this critical situation ended up resulting in further damage to my own body. That one might have torn my left Achilles tendon, and several pieces of the shattered stake were piercing through my heel. This had to be some kind of a sick joke. Was I going to die after having come this far? had no idea why, but this guy's tenacity was absurd. I could only speculate that he had no vitals or weak points to begin with. Then just... how? How would I win?
しかし消せねえな。お前本当にそんなもんかよ。そこらの喧嘩自慢に毛が生えた程度の力でどうにかなると思うほど間抜けじゃあるめえ。切れたもん勝ちがまかり通るご都合主義はよ、シュライバーみたいな反則バカ以外には起こせねえんだ。お前にそういう素質はねえ。
Schreiber. That's that kid. Like, or not kid. Well, I guess it's a kid. I don't know. He's at the beginning of the game.
それとも神風主義ってやつなのか。相変わらず東洋人は飽きやがんねえな。気合で勝てるや。てめえら戦争に負けてねえよ。
You didn't need to tell me. I knew that. Painfully well. What I needed now was a physical way to win. Striking during openings, coming up with plans, or doing damage through straight-up methods where they wouldn't help me here. I couldn't use violence within the boundaries of common sense to defeat someone who existed outside of it. Not to mention how he was toying with me while calmly gauging my battle prowess. Even if I could find some way to beat him, he'd most likely counter in an instant. But, even so, I couldn't just...
気に食わねえな。お前、絶望が足りねえ。これこんなたわけた国と時代じゃ、自分が死ぬって実感も持てねえのか。覚えがあるぜ、そういう命。まるであのクソと同じじゃねえかよ。その全て分かってますってなつら。
Wilhelm grumbled to himself, his gaze practically shooting icicles in my direction. Suddenly, I felt like that stare of his was robbing me of my body heat. I found my body simultaneously assaulted by a sickening combination of nausea, intoxication, and itchiness. I could neither breathe nor blink. Hell, I couldn't even lift a finger. My strength had been drained, as if my life force was being siphoned out. In the blink of an eye, the blood pouring from my wounds began to evaporate. What? I felt convinced that it wasn't my fate to die here today. In a complete turnabout, Wilhelm sounded a cackle, seemingly amused by something. His shoulders trembled violently as he attempted to hold it in, yet he ultimately erupted into booming laughter, unable to contain himself. Not even the dark of Wilhelm's sunglasses could hide the fact that his eyes glowed a bright hue of red. A demonic aura powerful enough to manifest as a physical force proceeded to beat down my whole body with the rage of a squall. Right now, my resolve was the only thing keeping my fleeting consciousness intact. Had I been mentally defenseless when I took that stare head on, it would have been enough to instantly kill me. His cry was an eruption of undiluted, unmistakable ecstasy. The man before me found himself both overjoyed and enraged by something beyond my comprehension.
俺はてめえより上ってことだよな、メルクリウス。
The surging waves of murderous impulse and evaporating blood dyed my vision red. Before me stood an honest-to-goodness scumbag, a genuine monster with no constraints to hold him back. In the face of that merciless pressure, I couldn't tell whether my heart was still even beating. I would die. His demonic arm of instant death came swift and sure. It appeared to move in slow motion, yet I could easily tell that a single hit from it would pulverize my skull. So, would I die here as just another victim? Seriously? Was I really going to die right here? I mean, the game's barely even started. I'm like 3 hours into the game. Oh, I'm longer than that, but I mean, to die right now would seem like such a waste, right? Tell me, have you ever experienced the sensation of foreknowledge? The prior knowledge of a certain thing. A phenomenon that assaults all senses, sixth included. For instance, I've witnessed this scenery before, kind of deja vu type. I've tasted this wine before. I've smelled this aroma before. I've heard this song before. I've betted this woman before. I've experienced all these things before. If so, then no bliss will ever bring joy, nor will any threat instill fear. The ability to feel moved by anything the world has to offer is the price paid for one's personal paradise. In that paradise, no one is downtrodden, no one is deprived of a thing. That world's only master is foreknowledge, a ceaseless recursion of repeating events. Yet in the grand scheme of things, is that not a denial of the concept of time? In truth, being robbed of anything in such a state is but an impossibility. All phenomena around you die only to be born again, repeated ad infinitum. You may think of it as a water wheel. It continues to spin and spin, forever drawing and spilling water. Once you realize that the same concept constitutes the universal construct of the cosmos and its inhabitants, then what have you to fear? In your daily existence, you do not care for moments that take your breath away. For ascribing validity to foreknowledge is indeed in your very nature. You remain unlike one such as I, who craves desperately for the unknown. Now, Zarathustra, will you accept the gift I have prepared to grant your wish? Both you and her were born into this world for a similar purpose. For her to meet you, and for you to wield her. Abominable girl, cursed girl, pitiful girl, damned girl. Hate her and love her, protect her and destroy her. She is the world's singularity, a being outside the boundaries of that law. She is dead, and yet she is not. She exists outside the world's concepts. Perpetual, eternal, immortal, divine, infinite, life beyond death. Ewikite. To counter the Anarber, to wield it as the executioner's blade that would reap the heads of the universe's law, that is Ewikite, the sorcery I weaved and granted to my sworn friend and his followers. But its true successor is none other than you. The very fact that I am giving her to you is firm proof of that. Indeed, for instance, take a good look at that man attempting to murder you. He, too, is yet another wielder of Ewikite, one of the beast's many fangs, the man who had devoured countless souls to elevate himself above mere mortals. Yet hardly does that mean he cannot be toppled by you. The Anarbe lusts for souls. The more they kill, the more they devour, the stronger their wielders become. Yet far be it from me to claim that quantity alone could triumph over quality. Listen well, Zarathustra. What I am about to grant you is both the most wretched and most beautiful soul mankind has ever birthed. With her by your side, a mere 1,000 or 2 inferior souls should pose no threat whatsoever. You have my word that when you reach completion, your prowess will rival even that of my sworn friend. I shall anxiously await the coming of that day. Therefore allow me to bestow upon you her soul, as well as the words to ignite the flames of sorcery. Halt, O time, for thou art fair. Within that hollow, empty space, following a moment that felt like an eternity, where a single second had been extended to last a million, my peculiar conversation with the entity finally came to an end. Wilhelm's approaching fist of imminent death had barely moved from where I had last seen it. Could I dodge it? And then launch a counterattack too? If so, then how would I do it? Both my hands and feet had been broken to hell and back. Even if I did try headbutting or biting him, it'd probably just end up hurting myself again. There was no point trying conventional attacks. Simple punches or slashes wouldn't even put a dent in his armor. Then what would I have to do? How would I fight him? With a skill that could break through souls, with an art that could devour them, with a blade that could put an end to eternal recurrence. That was. I'd already known them. And so, time began to move once more.
Bey, お前は何をしている?
The first thing I perceived upon returning to my senses was an intelligent and slightly irritated sounding voice. Oh, look at that. She caught his arm. Wilhelm stopped right in front of me, his hand frozen in the shape of a bird's of prey claw. A dark-haired girl stood next to him, holding him in place with the very same hand that would decimated my entire face with ease. Leon.
てめえはなぜ俺の楽しみを邪魔しやがる。
まずこちらの問いに答えてほしいな。カズイクルベイ注意殿。お前は一体何をしている?
There we are. Wow.
何をしているかだと。見てわからねえか？試してるのさ。ここでくたばるようなボンクラなら用はねえ。
なら彼は合格だろう。経緯はどうあれ生き延びた。先の問いにはお前の行動が生産杯芸家の意向を逸脱しているからだと答えよう。さらに言うならこの件は私に一任されている。こちらの指揮には従ってもらいたい。
俺がお前の指揮官にある。
芸家から聞いていないとは言わせないぞ。理解できなかったのならもう一度私から分かりやすく言ってやろう。
These people are so frightening because they're all so calm and collected. It makes it even scarier. Oh, except for this guy when he went absolutely batshit crazy, but... Wilhelm's right wrist made a creaking sound, his flesh, same body I couldn't even inflict a scratch on, buckling under pressure from the girl's slender hand. I couldn't believe my eyes.
彼に関してお前に生殺与奪の権利などない。これ以上逆らうなら黒煙卓に対する範囲とみなすぞ。お前の名誉は忠誠ではないようだからな。
Yeah, remember they made an oath that his honor was his loyalty?
面白い。範囲ときたか。了解。了解したよ、お嬢ちゃん。
You guys are really gonna regret not killing this guy, probably, when you had the chance.
黒煙卓ができた時に生まれてもなかったやつに言われちゃおしまいだが、お前が正しい。ああ、正しいと思う。名誉は大事だよな。名誉はよ。だからこのガキのことはもういい。知らん。バラそうが逃がそうが、またぐら開いて乗っかろうが好きなようにするがいいやな。お前はなんで俺に触れてる？
何?
It happened so suddenly. Wilhelm struck the puzzled woman with all his wrath.
てめえは劣等の分際で何をなれなれしく俺の体に触れてやがるって言ってんだよ。
At the same time that landmine of a howl went off, the girl swept my legs and blew me away with a hit to the shoulder. The impact ravaged my internal organs, stirring up a new wave of nausea. But I was in no mood to complain. The reason was simple, because I would have died, had she not done that. The briefest moment I'd seen of Wilhelm overwhelming wrath says enough to make me associated with the very incarnation of death. I pathetically vomited up a mixture of stomach acid and blood, realizing how much of a miracle it was that I even survived. As for them...
やってくれるな。死にたいのか、ベイ。
Oh, infighting.
そりゃこっちのセリフなんだよ。四半世紀も生きてねえチンケな猿が誰にタメ口聞いてやがる。
The tension in the air was nearing critical levels as the two exchanged glares. What in the world were these people?
殺す気だったのか。
それはてめえが防ぐんだろうね、レオンちゃんよ。事実そうなってるじゃねえか。濡れたか？立ったか？発情中か？猿同士で乳くり焼いてんだろうが、レッド野郎。見ててやるから淫乱しろや。
殺すか。
やってみろや。
Anyway, now that their attention was no longer focused on me, I attempted to make a move. Let's get the hell out of here while we can. Oh, shit. Again.
そんな顔しないでよ。別にひどいことなんかしないからさ。ねえ、一つだけ聞きたいことがあるんだけど、あなたさっき何かしようとしてたでしょ。私の目は節穴じゃないんだよね。あっちの筋肉バカ2人と一緒にしてもらっちゃ困るのだよ、美少年くん。あの時止められなかったら、あなたは何をしていたの？何をやろうとしていたの？そしてどうなっていたのかな？ほんと、空気読めない子って嫌だよね。余計な邪魔入れちゃうから、いいとこ見逃しちゃったじゃないの。でもま、それなりに楽しかったよ。だからね。
She then placed her hand on my chest and began rubbing the wounds on my arms, legs, and the entirety of my body. Almost like she was caressing them. What in the world was she...
いわゆる応急処置なのだ。面白いものを見せてくれたお礼だね。痛いの消してあげるから、後でちゃんと病院行くのよ。飛んだり跳ねたりしたらダメだからね。で、何よその顔。人が親切心出してるのにさ。
I could hardly tell if she was joking or being serious. But I had nothing to say.
まあいいや。特別に許してあげよう。それからさっきはごめんなさいね。教会がどうとか
You're
冗
a
談
real
だから。
bitch, you know that.
っていうか、そんなことできないから。なので、
She poked the air between my eyebrows and lowered her voice to a whisper.
今夜はこれでおしまいにしよう。
The second she said that, I lost control of my body and collapsed onto the ground.
はいはい、終了撤収。ほらそこ、いつまでじゃれてんのよ。やめてくれないと私泣くよ。泣いちゃうよ。私が泣くと大変だよ。だから仲良くしようよ。
With faint echoes of her indifferent voice still lingering in my mind, I finally lost consciousness. Well, I think that'll be enough for one episode. That's crazy, right? We had some sort of power, I guess. We didn't get to use any of it before Leon stepped in and stopped Wilhelm from completely killing us horribly. And the girl healed us for whatever reason. That seems kind of weird. But I guess she didn't care. She just liked the fact that we gave her a good show. So apparently we live for today. But these people, they're not human. They're monsters. They're demons. And there's more of them. What kind of people are we going to meet in the future? Who knows? Well, and with that, I'm going to end the video off here. And I will see you all on Monday. Have a good day.